Most people start with a burst of motivation that quickly turns into hesitation. You sit down, pen in hand, but the longer you stare at the white space, the harder it feels to actually begin. It doesn't help that the internet frames journaling as a universal solution for every problem, from professional burnout to creative blocks. This lack of direction is usually why the habit fails. Writing without a specific objective often feels like aimless drifting, and when a session doesn't produce a clear insight, it's easy to stop seeing the point of doing it at all. To find a practice that actually sticks, we have to look at the lexicon of reflection. It's a framework that separates simple chronological logging from targeted analytical thinking. By definition, a diary is a chronological record. It's a historical document of daily events and personal experiences, like the one kept by Anne Frank. These entries capture immediate physical realities, what you did, who was there, and how you felt in the moment. Because they follow the clock rather than a specific topic, they remain largely unstructured. A journal is the opposite. It is topical and analytical, designed specifically to process complex professional reflections or difficult internal dilemmas. Finding the right approach isn't about willpower, it's about matching the way you write to the specific psychological outcome you want to achieve. We can evaluate any journaling method using this matrix. It weighs the cognitive and emotional effort required against the psychological return on investment delivered. Method 1 is the documentarian. This is simple daily logging, usually through digital apps like Dailyo or the native Apple Journal. This approach is effective if your goal is an archive of your life or basic mood patterns. It sits in the lower left quadrant. It's convenient, requiring very little effort, but rarely leads to behavioral change or processing deep-seated issues. Method 2, the unblocker, is commonly known as morning pages. It requires writing 3 full pages of unstructured thought every single morning. Proponents argue that the brain's inhibitory processes are weaker right after waking up. Writing immediately allows raw, unfiltered thoughts onto the page uncensored. This process successfully externalizes petty worries and stimulates creative problem-solving by bypassing your internal critic. The downside is the heavy time commitment. It produces a high volume of throwaway writing that is meant to be dumped, not analyzed or reread. This requires significant discipline, moving it further right on the effort scale, though its impact is limited to temporary mental clarity. The documentarian and unblocker capture or clear your mind, but lack the rigid structure needed for clinical healing or professional analysis. For those goals, we look at Method 3, the analyst. This is reflective journaling, a highly structured framework used in high-stakes fields like nursing. This framework is a cycle. You record an event, perform a clinical analysis, identify what you learned, and then state exactly how you will apply that knowledge in the future. This forces a chaotic emotional reaction into logical judgments. By following a strict sequence, you turn an experience into an actionable professional strategy. This feels more like an assignment than a creative outlet. Because it requires such high discipline, many use AI-guided apps like Reflection.app to provide prompts. Because this intellectual friction leads to measurable behavioral growth, it occupies the high-effort, high-impact zone. Finally, there is Method 4, the healer. This is based on the Pennebaker Expressive Protocol, a clinical intervention for emotional upheaval. The rules are absolute. Write continuously for 15 to 20 minutes about a severe stressor, and repeat the process for exactly 4 consecutive days. This protocol is linked to documented clinical outcomes, including improved immune system functioning, better sleep, and reduced symptoms of post-traumatic stress. It's emotionally draining and can be detrimental if attempted too soon after trauma, but no other method requires this level of friction. It sits at the extreme end, trading short-term distress for long-term physiological and psychological gains. Each tool has a specific limit. A casual log cannot process deep trauma, just as a clinical protocol isn't designed to record a vacation. To decide which of these to use, you have to identify your primary bottleneck. What kind of friction are you trying to solve right now? If you are overwhelmed with daily logistics and want to preserve memories, you are a documentarian. Simple tools like Apple Journal or Day One are sufficient. If you are struggling with creative block or persistent anxiety, you are an unblocker. A cheap analog notebook is the best tool for an unstructured mental dump. If you need to turn professional mistakes into future growth, you are an analyst. You need the guided structure of an app like Reflection.app to maintain the protocol. And if you are trying to process a painful past event, you are a healer. You need a finite 4-day clinical intervention using a secure app like Penzu. There is no need to attempt all of these at once. You only need to deploy the one specific method that addresses your current situation. Journaling is a technology. Like any other tool, applying it to the wrong problem guarantees a poor result. A blank page is simply a surface. The quality of your outcome is determined by the specific structural rules you apply to your thoughts. Match your framework to your goal, and the results will follow.